Mr. Lavrov. I would say the talks were, as always, very warm, comfortable, comprehensive, I think productive. We, in many ways, built upon the conversation we had when the foreign minister was in Delhi in April this year. Before the talks today, I was in Moscow yesterday. I delivered a talk at EAM on why our partnership is a special and privileged strategic partnership. I think the uniqueness of our relationship was demonstrated, reaffirmed in many ways by our discussion today. I also had a very good meeting yesterday with Deputy Prime Minister Yuri Borisov, where we went through issues relevant to the Intergovernmental Commission. So let me speak a little bit about the talks this morning with the Foreign Minister. I think what it showed was that despite the fact that so many things are changing in our world, both before and as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, our time-tested and trust-based relationship is very much not just in place, but remains very strong, continues to grow. We are seeing that in different ways, and I would like to, right at the start, express my appreciation for the support we got from Russia during the second wave of the COVID pandemic this year. There were 4 consignments which were flown in on a very expedited basis by the Russian government. And of course, as you've also heard, now India has become a partner of Russia in the production and use of the Sputnik V vaccine. And we believe that this is not only good for the two of us, but it has positive implications for the rest of the world. Now, we've always seen our relationship with Russia as an contribution to global peace, security, and stability. I think what makes our working together so natural and comfortable is our belief in a multipolar global order. We consider that to be a reflection of a very natural, I would say inevitable process of the evolution of interstate relations in the 21st century. Now, much of our talks, especially the bilateral side of it, was to review the progress in different dimensions of our very broad-ranging cooperation. I think Foreign Minister Lavrov has spoken about its different developments there. I don't want to repeat that, but I would recognize that we've actually made very good progress, even though for the last 1 year, a lot of this has been through virtual contacts. And I can assure you that when the annual bilateral summit takes place this year, the development, the progress in our cooperation will be very much on display before all of you. A new dimension that has been added to our relationship, of course, is the agreement to hold a 2+2 dialogue of foreign and defense ministers. We felt that we should do that sometime as per mutual convenience this year. Otherwise, I can say we are very satisfied with the all-round development of our relations. Again, as you know, a lot of our cooperation is focused on the nuclear, space, energy, and defense sectors. The Kudankulam nuclear power plant project is on track, and you heard Foreign Minister Lavrov tell you that the concrete first pour for Unit 5 has taken place. Space, again, has both practical and, I would say, symbolic importance for our relationship. You have been our original and strongest partners on the space side. The energy cooperation between us has grown very significantly in the last few years, and we see that today reflected both in new potential investments and long-term commitments which we have agreed to in the field of oil and gas. Our defense military technical cooperation, but I would say even industrial collaboration today has been strengthened by a Russian interest in Make in India program, which is very visible. Moving beyond the established areas, we have been discussing greater inter-regional cooperation, particularly with the Russian Far East. We spoke about how we could take that forward. There are some agreements which have to be signed. I think we made some progress there. We discussed connectivity, especially the North-South corridor. We discussed it yesterday with Mr. Borisov, but also today with Mr. Lavrov. The Chennai-Vladivostok Eastern Maritime Corridor as well. I briefed him about, what is happening in terms of developments in India, and I think overall our sense of economic cooperation and science and technology cooperation was very positive. In terms of regional and global issues, India is poised to hold the presidency of the Security Council in August. So I shared with Foreign Minister Lavrov our plans and ideas for that month, and we obviously value Russian participation and cooperation in that regard. I would say in the UN Security Council, this is not a surprise. In fact, it is very much a natural happening that we have worked very cooperatively and very positively. So the strength of our strategic partnership, I think, is also today expressed when it comes to deliberations in the UN. India is currently the chair of the BRICS and also of the RIC. So that is also something we discussed. We have common membership of G20, of ASEAN-led forums, of SCO, of SICA. So we have an SCO Foreign Ministers meeting coming up very soon. So we've spent some time on that. In terms of specific regions, of course, the situation in Afghanistan occupied a lot of our attention because it has a direct implication for regional security. We believe that the immediate need of the day is really a reduction in violence, and if you have to see peace within Afghanistan and around Afghanistan, that's important for India and Russia to work together to ensure that much of the progress that we have seen in economic and social and democratic terms are maintained. We are both committed to an independent, sovereign, united and democratic Afghanistan. Beyond Afghanistan, we spoke in some detail about what was happening in Syria, about the Iran issue, spent some time on Libya. And we have both long-standing interests in the region. We believe that peace and stability in such a sensitive region is very, very important for global interests. From my side, I shared our viewpoint on the Indo-Pacific. We support cooperation that reflects the multipolar and rebalanced character of global politics. What I told the Minister Lavrov, which I repeat to you, is we are very much committed to the centrality and the unity of the ASEAN. And we believe that the Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative that we tabled in the East Asia Summit is very important for the larger region. We, of course, because of our larger geopolitical compatibility with Russia, we see a more active Russian presence and participation in the region as something very, very important. So once again, what I would conclude by saying is it was a very good discussion. It is very much part of a regular, continuous dialogue that we have been having. It's very good to be back here, Minister Lavrov, and I would say we have today made good progress as part of preparations for the summit. Thank you very much.
Пожалуйста, переходим к вопросам. Телеканал Rush Today.
Спасибо, Сергей Викторович. Сегодня движение «Талибан» в Москве заявило, что уже контролирует 85%.
That was the statement that was put out by India's Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar there as a part of his visit. He highlighted about the many issues on which he held discussions with his Russian counterpart Sergey Lavrov, reiterating that it is important and in the interest of all nations concerned in the neighborhood to maintain peace in Afghanistan.
прокомментировать развитие ситуации в Афганистане? Не беспокоит Индию то, что там развивается ситуация таким-то образом? Спасибо.
Что касается Афганистана и может ли мир смириться с тем, что там происходит, наверное, все-таки нужно вопрос адресовать самим афганцам. При посредничестве Соединенных Штатов были намечены шаги по нормализации обстановки, по завязыванию политического процесса, достижению договоренностей о переходном периоде.
So this was one of the key press briefings by S. Jaishankar, where he has spoken about the role that India and indeed the strategy that India would like to employ in the very complex situation that is, of course, unfolding in Afghanistan. That was one of the key issues that, of course, came up for discussions between the Indian Foreign Minister and his Russian counterpart. And he also went on to reiterate about many other issues that were also up for discussion, where he said that India and Russia will be collaborating in different sectors such as space and defense, amongst other things. He also said that these talks that they held in Moscow were built upon talks that were already held between India and Russia while Sergey Lavrov was in Delhi.
Мы не собираемся предпринимать никаких мер, кроме повторения наших настойчивых призывов к тому, чтобы политический процесс, который все афганцы на словах поддержали, чтобы он был начат как можно скорее. Мы будем обсуждать Афганистан на следующей неделе в Душанбе.
And also India's Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar spoke on Sputnik V. Let's listen in to what the Indian Foreign Minister had to say.
I think what it showed was that despite the fact that so many things are changing in our world, both before and as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, our time-tested and trust-based relationship is very much not just in place but remains very strong, continues to grow. And we are seeing that in different ways, and I would like to right at the start express my appreciation for the support we got from Russia during the second wave of the COVID pandemic this year. There were 4 consignments which were flown in on a very expedited basis by the Russian government. And of course, as you've also heard, now India has become a partner of Russia in the production and use of the Sputnik V vaccine. And we believe that this is not only good for the two of us, but it has positive implications for the rest of the world. Discuss how to stabilize and bring about peace in Afghanistan. And the reason is because it has proven implications for regional security and regional stability. So the point right now we stress is that we must see a reduction in violence. Violence cannot be the solution for the situation in Afghanistan. And at the end of the day, who governs Afghanistan has a legitimacy aspect to it. I think that is something which cannot and should not be ignored.
Times of India.
My question is both of the ministers.
All right, so that was an important statement that S. Jaishankar made, where he said that whoever rules Afghanistan will have a certain legitimacy attached to their rule, not spelling out in so many words as to what may happen in terms of the power sharing. Remember, the Americans, of course, maintain that it is not an inevitability that the Taliban will be able to topple the government in Kabul. But a lot of commentators are, of course, suggesting that the situation in Afghanistan is very fluid, and that is a point which the Indian Foreign Minister there reiterated, stating that it will be important for the region, for the different nations in the neighborhood, to engage with whichever would be the political dispensation that would take charge of the governance in Kabul, because that would then acquire a certain level of legitimacy. And remember, one of the key aspects of this meeting between S. Jaishankar and Sergey Lavrov has been the very fluid situation in Afghanistan, where the Americans have made it abundantly clear that they'll be pulling out by the 31st of August. And what happens after that, according to the Americans, is something which the government in Kabul will have to deal on itself. So S. Jaishankar, the Indian Foreign Affairs Minister who is presently in Russia, has stressed the importance in drawing down the violence, insisting that it is important that a peaceful, stable and democratic Afghanistan is something that is in the interest of people of Afghanistan and indeed for the larger region at large. Listen in.
In terms of specific regions, of course, the situation in Afghanistan occupied a lot of our attention because it has a direct implication for regional security. We believe that the immediate need of the day is really a reduction in violence, and if you have to see peace within Afghanistan and around Afghanistan, that's important for India and Russia to work together to ensure that much of the progress that we have seen in economic and social and democratic terms are maintained. We are both committed to an independent, sovereign, united and democratic Afghanistan.
So that was India's Foreign Minister there stating that India is committed to an independent, peaceful Afghanistan which is capable of taking care of on its own. And this has been the crux of the discussions between India and Russia as a part of the two-day visit that S. Jaishankar has presently made to Russia. Remember, Afghanistan has also seen a fair bit of Russian presence after the invasion of Afghanistan by the Russians in 1978. Russia eventually had to pull back the then Soviet Union in 1988, and hence the Soviet Union considers itself as a major stakeholder in Afghanistan.
COVID challenge has actually provided an occasion for India and Russia actually to demonstrate the strength of their cooperation. We are seeing that today in the production of Sputnik vaccine, and I completely agree with my Russian counterpart. I think we have to protect our population and help the world, and the two go together, that they are part of the same issue. The second point I would make is regarding travel. We believe that the basis for travel should be testing. That if people who are tested before for international travel, who are tested before travel and tested on arrival is a good enough basis for travel. But some countries have now introduced the issue of vaccination. So we will have to reach obviously some understanding, and that is something I have discussed today. How do we make sure that we are not discriminated against, and how do we reach understandings between ourselves about the travel of our citizens to each other's countries. The third issue is actually not a vaccine issue, it's an economic recovery issue. That all our economies have been negatively impacted by the COVID. So a large part of the discussions I had with Deputy Prime Minister Borisov and with the Foreign Minister today was how can India-Russia economic cooperation speed up economic recovery for us.
Пожалуйста, Newsroom.
Вы уже упомянули переговоры о создании зоны свободной торговли между ЕАЭС.
So that is another important aspect of that came up for discussion between S. Jaishankar and Sergey Lavrov, the issue of how to go ahead and deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, S. Jaishankar also went on to state that India has now become a partner in the Sputnik vaccine that, remember, was originally developed by the Russians. S. Jaishankar also spoke at length about the importance of containing COVID-19 and how Russia had in some ways helped India by exporting the Sputnik V vaccine in the crisis that was witnessed earlier in the months of April and May. He also spoke about how it is important to cooperate in the economic recovery of both the nations post-COVID-19 induced lockdown. So these are some of the key issues that came up for discussion between the two leaders. A very pivotal visit, something that has the crisis in Afghanistan as the background, and also the cooperation on COVID-19, how to deal with it. The issue of ramping up the production of vaccines has also figured very prominently in the talks held between the two leaders.
Санкционную тематику в использовании доллара. Поэтому мы активно внедряем в наш торговый оборот с партнерами в Евразийском экономическом союзе и с другими партнерами, вопросы, которые связаны с переходом на расчеты в национальных валютах.
So some very important points there having been made both by Sergey Lavrov and also by S Jaishankar. But one of the key highlights that S Jaishankar did go on to mention as a part of his press briefing is that no matter which dispensation actually goes on to seize power in Kabul will acquire a certain level of legitimacy. He did not take the name of Taliban, of course, but remember, this is a key and a very contentious issue that is being discussed as part of these discussions along with the Russians. And S. Jaishankar, at this point of time, has only maintained that India would like to see a peaceful Afghanistan and hopes for a reduction of violence. The Americans will be pulling out on the 31st of August, and what happens in Afghanistan post that will be watched very closely in different capitals around the world. All right, now to give us more insights in terms of what all of this, of course, means, we are joined in by WION's Siddhant Sibil, who's joining us live on this broadcast. Good afternoon to you, Siddhant. A very important statement there made by India's Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar, where he went on to state that any dispensation that acquires power, that goes on to rule in Kabul after the American forces exit, will acquire a certain level of legitimacy. Are we to read more than what has been said by the Foreign Minister?
Well, yes, a very significant statement made by the Indian External Affairs Minister in Moscow, specifically on Afghanistan, that Afghanistan remains a matter of concern. In fact, even as we speak, Taliban delegation is in Moscow, and there was in fact a press conference earlier in the day in which they said that approximately 85% of the territory of the country has fallen into Taliban hands. So it is a significant statement by Taliban, by the Indian External Affairs Minister. This, remember, is for the first time that such a strong public statement has been made by the Indian side. But nonetheless, other than Afghanistan, the focus was also on other things. First, of course, being the upcoming visit of the Russian President Vladimir Putin to India, also on the Security Council. Remember, India will be the president of the Security Council next month. And there, of course, we know that Russia is already a permanent member, a veto-holding permanent member. And naturally, there is a lot of cooperation between the two countries.
Absolutely, indeed. And another aspect that was spoken about by S. Jaishankar is how India has now become a part of the Sputnik V vaccine, and the cooperation between India and Russia in combating COVID-19 is very critical for both the nations.
Well, yes, of course, when it comes to Sputnik vaccine and the COVID cooperation between the two countries, this is something that has been an ongoing process. We know that during the second wave of the COVID pandemic here in India, Russia had sent a lot of assistance to India. Then, of course, last year we saw India sending LCQ to Russia. So this kind of cooperation continues. But, of course, at the heart of it is vaccine cooperation. India is going to manufacture approximately 850 million vaccines, Sputnik V vaccine, that will be not only used here in India but also in Russia and third countries as well.
Absolutely, indeed, Siddhant. Do continue to stay on with this, because I want to dip in and listen in to what India's Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar said about the key importance of the Asia-Pacific region, and also how he sees the cooperation between India and Russia in shaping the future of Asia-Pacific.
From my side, I shared our viewpoint on the Indo-Pacific. We support cooperation that reflects the multipolar and rebalanced character of global politics. What I told the Minister Lavrov, which I repeat to you, is we are very much committed to the centrality and the unity of the ASEAN. And we believe that the Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative that we tabled in the East Asia Summit is very important for the larger region. We, of course, because of our larger geopolitical compatibility with Russia, we see a more active Russian presence and participation in the region as something very, very important.
All right, so that was the statement that the Indian Foreign Affairs Minister had to say, where he said that he sees Russian participation in the Asia-Pacific as being central in the manner in which diplomacy would be conducted in the region. Siddhant, this of course is a very significant statement in the wake of what is happening in the Asia-Pacific. The tensions between the United States and China are, of course, one would think is the context of what the Indian Foreign Minister was trying to say there.
Well, primarily the fact that the Indian External Affairs Minister has mentioned Indo-Pacific during the briefing and also in the presence of Russian Foreign Minister is a message to Moscow that it's high time that Russia sheds its hesitation and inhibition when it comes to the Indo-Pacific vision. Now, this vision is backed by Delhi and Washington, but the Chinese, of course, have their own worries. They believe that it's an attempt to encircle the entire Chinese growth in Asia, and Russia, being an ally of China, has also been voicing those concerns. So that is why the Indian External Affairs Minister has, in a sense, assuaged those concerns privately. We know that in the past as well. In fact, yesterday when he was speaking at that significant event, he mentioned Russia as being a Euro-Pacific country. That is a statement that shows that India is keen that Russia joins the club, the vision of the Indo-Pacific. In fact, there is practical cooperation in terms of connectivity between India and Russia in terms of Indo-Pacific. From Vladivostok to Chennai, there are plans to connect those two cities. That means passing through the South China Sea region as well.
Siddhant, do continue to stay on with this. This, of course, is a very crucial statement that was made by India's External Affairs Minister. Let's listen in to what he had to say again on the issue of Afghanistan.
In terms of specific regions, of course, the situation in Afghanistan occupied a lot of our attention because it has a direct implication for regional security. We believe that the immediate need of the day is really a reduction in violence. And if you have to see peace within Afghanistan and around Afghanistan, that's important for India and Russia to work together to ensure that much of the progress that we have seen in economic and social and democratic terms are maintained. We are both committed to an independent, sovereign, united and democratic Afghanistan.
All right, so that of course was the statement by the Indian Foreign Minister. And Siddhant, if I can bring you in on this, the Foreign Minister there is making a very key point where he says that irrespective of what happens after the American withdrawal, the gains that have been made in the last 2 decades in Afghanistan, in the manner in which its polity has been developed, in the manner in which some of the human rights have been held up, these are gains that need to be held up, and it is the responsibility of the other nations in the neighborhood to ensure that this, of course, goes on to happen. All right, I think we seem to have lost my colleague Siddhant Sibal there, but this, of course, has been a very crucial visit by the Indian Foreign Minister, reiterating in many ways the centrality of what is likely to happen in Afghanistan is something that is going to affect the entire region at large. It is in the interest of every nation within the neighborhood and indeed around the world that peace prevails in Afghanistan. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.